Hello, Facebook. This is Tommy Valentine from Historic Athens. We want to thank you for tuning in to today's episode of This Moment in History, COVID-19 in Athens, Georgia. For those of you that are tuning in for the very first time, this series is a 55-episode interview series dedicated to speaking to different community leaders, entrepreneurs, business owners, clergy, all kinds of people that define who Athens, Georgia is in 2020. Through these interviews, we are working to explore and document the unique effect of COVID-19 in our communities present, and also looking ahead to the future. Today's guest is an excellent community leader that we're really lucky to have on the program. Today, we're speaking to Commissioner Patrick Davenport. We're going to be getting into who Patrick is, what a county commissioner does, as well as how COVID-19 has affected his work and a few other contemporary issues. If this is your first time tuning in, we want to let you know that because this is episode 42, if you feel the need to catch up, you want to go back and look at other episodes, you can go to the video section of our Facebook page for a quick glance at some of the people we've spoken to in the past. There's some really phenomenal interviews. People were really generous in what they were willing to share. So we do encourage you to go back and check that out. To everyone else, we are here every weekday at 1 o'clock through June 26th. So I hope you'll come back. Halfway through today's program, we'll tell you a little bit more about that. But let's go ahead and get Patrick on the program. So if you'll bear with me just 1 second, I'm going to switch some things around. We'll trade out this photo of Patrick for the real thing. So one moment. All right. Patrick, thank you so much for jumping on the program with us today. How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty tired. I stayed up like many Athenians probably did, and watching the election last night. So it's been a. I was tweeting with Blake Odd to get election updates, but um, Blaine Williams just texted us and stated that the Board of Elections is wrapping up 16,000 ballots right now, so we should have the results probably by the end of this podcast.
Wow, thank you for updating me. Yeah, we here, Patrick, do you mind turning down the speaker on me just a bit? I think that'll prevent some
Yeah.
feedback. Okay, great. Thank you so much for that update. For those of you that are watching this in the future, or maybe just are not tapped in politically, election night is definitely happening during COVID-19. Last night, I know that reporter Blake Odd I saw was tweeting until 4 a.m. As we were waiting for final updates. There were a few nail biters, a few surprises. Not an uneventful election night. And Patrick, when we were talking this morning before you came on air, we were talking about all of our interview guests selected their own date, and you were kicking yourself a little bit for selecting the day after election day because you are somebody who is likely to stay up all night on election night. So can you tell us a little bit about what that experience was like for you last night? Bring us up to speed.
So, I mean, there are a lot of great candidates. I really don't have a favorite, but just because when you get involved in politics, you kind of like you really get interested in who's going to win. You follow the campaign, and this year, due to COVID, it has been very interesting due to the fact that like we've had our election moved twice.
Right.
So when I talk to some of the people some of the candidates who are out there campaigning, it's just very interesting to hear their perspective on how they're campaigning in this pandemic, how they are engaging citizens or residents in Ascot County, and but last night it was a nail biter. When the polls closed at 7. Of course, we all went online to check and see if the results came in, but starting towards 9 to 11, results started coming in, and it's exciting. So good luck to anyone who does pursue a career in politics, and to the candidates that do win and don't win. Just realize that you did something that many people envy you for doing, and for stepping up to the plate.
That's right. Well, Patrick, first of all, I see what someone's thrown up a comment, so I can share it with us on screen here. Jeremy says, is it ever an uneventful election day in Georgia? Jeremy, I would argue it is never an uneventful election day. What do you think, Patrick?
So I'm still looking at the numbers. And I need to double check, but yeah, it's never on an eventful day in Georgia when there's or any state when there's an election. But I do want to know if the vote, if we're turning, if we're tuning down, not tuning down, but if less people are voting, because I'm very
Mm.
concerned about that. I want, every election we should be increasing in the amount of people who are voting, but that's my main concern currently, just making sure that more and more people are voting, especially considering it's a presidential year.
Yeah, you probably noticed that in the Republican congressional primary last night, for example, I mean, and these numbers will change as the absentee and mail-ins are
Mhm.
counted. But at one point, with 100% of precincts counted, there were fewer than 400 votes to decide that. This is the Athens area, and obviously that primary takes place all around this congressional district. But I mean, those are the kind of numbers you see in a high school presidential election, or something like that. And so, as an elected official and as someone who, I know when you campaign, you go door to door practically. You're in every neighborhood. You're trying to get people out there to vote. Can you explore a little bit more about what you just shared? Your concern that maybe people aren't answering the call or able to answer the call. What do you think?
Well, so right now, due to COVID, the door knocking is pretty much a no-no. So
Right.
so most people are doing the phone calls, and it's kind of hard as a candidate to engage someone over the phone.
Right.
Like, you're always trained in college and through these seminars that that one-on-one, FaceTime is essential to engaging your constituent. But from what I'm hearing on the ground now is that most of the candidates are doing phone calls, and when you're going through, dialing a number and the number may not be correct and
Right.
getting to somebody, it can be problematic. But it's for me when I campaigned, it was easy, just going door to door. Hey, I'm Patrick Davenport, introducing myself, and but my hats off to all the candidates who are going through this and were
Yeah.
successfully campaigned.
Patrick, you and I first met several years ago on a campaign. We both worked on the campaign for Herb Gilmore. Before you were a commissioner, you've worked on campaigns. You have a long history with campaigns. Can you walk us through that? If you could start with what got you involved in politics, whatever it was, and then just walk us from there until now. How did that path?
Okay,
Fit?
that's
Yeah.
a good question. So, what got me involved in politics was the wonderful year of 2004. Don't quote me on that year, but President Bush got reelected, and it was right during the Iraq War, and I forget the gentleman, the Democratic candidate. Forget his name. I'm drawing a blank, but it was during that time where
Yeah.
can you say his name?
John Kerry, you mean?
That's it,
Yeah,
John
that's it.
Kerry. So it was Kerry and Bush, and it was just one of those moments that the Democrats felt that like, oh yeah, we're going to win this. The Iraq war is not going good. Um, and this was during a time in Georgia where we had a lot of Southern Democrats who were flipping
Right.
to Southern Democrat who were flipping to Republican, and there was this dynamic shift, and so like that's when I really started getting more involved into politics and started paying attention, especially to local politics and to state politics to to gauge, like there's some needs and services that residents are needing, and the shift that was taking place, people were not being heard. So I really began in 2004, but my big campaign, I have helped some local races for Senate campaigns. But my biggest campaign that I ever did was the Herb Gilmore campaign
Right.
in 2016 or 14. I think it was 2014.
14, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
I still think this year's 2019 because of COVID. To be honest with you, but it was 2014 was my first big campaign, and working with a wonderful group of people, wonderful team to help Herb Gilmore win District 3, which Melissa won. And that was a very interesting race because so many people ran, and there was a runoff. And at the time, people didn't think that Melissa was going to win. And guess what? She just won her second term, and she has been a phenomenal commissioner. So, but
Yeah.
I mean, it was a during that campaign period, doing her, for Herb Gilmore, the almost daily meetings, the consulting, the people who are handling the media, the social media, the telephone calls, the door knocking. I mean, it was an eye opening experience that helped me tremendously with my campaign. Oh,
So
and I want to thank you for that,
yeah, of
introducing me to
course,
that.
of course. Well, uh, it's funny. Athens tends to circle itself. We've talked about how, you and I, our headquarters in that was in the Say building, which is now a building that there's all this controversy over. Athens just loves to kind of go back around and around on itself.
Yeah.
Speaking of history and going back and around in itself, so you grew up on the east side of Athens, is that right?
East Side, born and raised.
All right, so I was gonna flash somewhere in my bookshelf. I got my Cedar Shoals
Oh,
Mirari
please
here.
don't.
Right? I don't have yours. I don't have yours. I don't have yours.
Okay.
But obviously go Jags. And
Yeah.
Jeremy's out there and he's a gladiator, and that's okay. We like you too. But can you tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up on the east side and how that kind of prepared you for the work you're doing now?
Yeah. So East Side was pretty much 30 years ago the way it is today. Quiet. You see the stars at night.
Mhm.
Um, Me and my brothers used to ride our bikes up 78, which I wouldn't dare do now.
Right.
But hats off to those who do, the bikers. But we used to ride our bike to the public library, which was at the government building now.
Right.
And it's still farm area, but most of my family, they live on the east side, just open area, farms, nice and quiet. And we used to actually walk to school, which walking up Highway 78 is still something that I wouldn't recommend people doing. But
Right.
30 years ago, it was common for people to walk up the highway and walk to church and stuff like that. So um, just it is a great experience, and I don't regret it one bit.
And I have to point out that because gladiators are spiteful, I'm gonna get all my sponsorships pulled. But Jeremy put a frowny face when we said that thing about Cedar Shoals and Clark Central. So that's okay, Jeremy. We like you. We like you. So you know, the East Side. So much of the history when we talk about the history of Athens, we tend to concentrate on the historic neighborhoods and districts and the rich history that started at UGA, branched out to downtown Athens history, and that was largely defined by the West Side history. But the East Side itself, the formal definition of historic is 50 years. A lot of parts of the East Side have already exceeded that or are meeting that soon. Um, when you were growing up on the east side of Athens, did you get a sense that you were part of a tradition or part of a history, or did it feel brand new? What did it feel like?
Growing up on the east side, it just felt, especially when I was young, just felt brand new. My family history has been deep rooted in East Athens. So my mom, my dad, they're all from the East Athens. Well, my dad is from Arnoldville, which is right outside of East Athens. But my history was pretty much rooted in how my ancestors, my grandmother, my grandfather, my
Mhm.
great grandmother, grandfather, pretty much were given land, which my parents on my mother's side, my mom was given land off. Well, my grandfather was given land by the Morton family
Mm.
and their descendants. Um, a little over maybe a century ago, maybe a little over a century ago. And my family still owned that land. And the same thing happened to my father. He was given land by a different family, and and that's where our culture, where my heritage really comes from, and deep rooted in just that rich, not so much other families that grew up in Athens, but just that deep rooted Davenport Carey family, and the struggles and the livelihood that we all went through.
I have to share this because I got people in the comment section pulling out receipts here, so I got to share. Got Patrick's from Southeast Athens. Let's keep it correct, and then we got very much more specific here with Dunlap Road, Morton Road. So absolutely, credentials established. Thank you. And then Alex Sams shared that this gladiator has a whole new respect for the East Side after coaching soccer at Hillsman for 4 years. So go Panthers as well. That's good. Thank you, Alex. Um, so, Patrick, I'm bringing up the East Side not just because we want to get to know you, or not just because I like yelling "Go Jags" every chance I get, although there's that too. But um, the city's changed so much, and it's
Hmm.
likely that if somebody's watching this interview 50 years from now, the city's going to change even more. I mean, I know that some of our commenters, during that whole what was that Facebook trend for a while? They're like, you're from Athens if you like, where everyone was like pulling out older and older memories.
Yeah.
And I know like there were a lot of folks who were just talking about, I remember where when Lexington, near the intersection of Lexington and Gaines School Road, I mean, you had the Shoney's, you had
Oh my God.
the Bells over there, and the pet store that unfortunately burned down, and but it was an entirely different feel for that side of town than you see now. And as a commissioner, you now have a stake in that. You get to help shape
Mhm.
that. I'm sure you have preferences about that. What are your thoughts about how Athens has grown since you were a kid riding your bike to the old library? And where do you think Athens is going?
So, but I love all of Athens, but my heart lies in East Athens.
Mhm.
So, day one since I stepped foot into commissioner seat, my main focus is to revitalize that old Athens back in the day.
Mhm.
So, like, one thing that was unique about East Athens is the fact that like East Athens was like a downtown for us East Siders. So we
Right.
didn't have to go all the way downtown. We didn't have to go to the mall, and we had our roses. KFC was over here off of Lexington Road. Everything was central. We didn't have to. People walked, from Cedar Creek,
Right.
and walked in every neighborhoods. And that's what I'm trying to get back to. Just to make East Athens its own distinct location where people can gather, people can fellowship, people can don't have to walk don't have to drive all the way across town. But just growing up in that atmosphere, knowing that like this is my home, this is a great place to be. um Over the course of some years, I've seen most of our focus go towards west side of Athens, the mall area, and a lot of attention is focused on downtown. But we really need to realize that like Athens has a lot of different pockets where people are satisfied with their regional locale instead of just that central location or the commercial hub. But one of my biggest struggles right now that I argue with one of the commissioner you'll speak with tomorrow is, and I know she's gonna joke about this, is like um, most of the services that I've been trying to provide to East Athens has actually been going to District 9 because the Highway 72 29 corridor where the new Kroger is, since that development has happened, a lot of developers want to develop in that area. In Madison County and Jackson County is going pretty steadily, but I jab at Commissioner Thornton all the time, say, I'm tired of you taking my businesses. So like I'll contact them and they're like, yeah, I'm interested, but I'm really interested in going up there. So but it just it's the same thing that happened with the west side of Athens when the mall came into
Right.
place. So it just finding that niche, that market to entice business to come back to the east side.
Right. Well, I see. I want to stay on this theme because it's useful. Once again, for those of you who have just tuned in, we're speaking to Commissioner Patrick Davenport. We're going to be talking about COVID-19, but we're also just kind of talking about history at this time. At the completion of this series, all 55 episodes of this series are going to be sent over to our libraries and research institutions, and so everything we're talking about now is useful, even if it's just so that researchers 50 years from now can look back and think about the things we were worried about or celebrating. Another shout out here to Bulldog Sporting Goods, Radio Shack, Blockbuster.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about, I don't even know if this is going to connect with you, Patrick, but when I think of like old school Athens, I think about, do you remember the really terrible playground, the first McDonald's playground that was there.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
like they eventually got it together with a ball pit and everything, but for a while there, it was like
It
a
was bad.
hamburger you could crawl under that was always damp, no matter what when you went to
Yeah.
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 But and you know it's interesting whether it's the you know the way Food Lion left. You're right. I mean, I even remember right next to the McDonald's, in between the McDonald's and the Cork and Barrel, that shopping center in there has really
Mhm.
had some ups and downs. There's a
Yeah.
Mexican grocer in there now, but you know there used to be the teacher supply store there, a comic book store, all kinds of things. You know, are there any businesses from your childhood or places that you miss having on that side of town?
Roses.
Roses. You really are missing Roses. I remember Roses closing. I got some Teenage Mutant Ninja
Yeah.
Turtles and clothes out, I think.
Roses. Like it was a good time because
Yeah,
like my mom and dad would take during Christmas time and birthdays and the old Pizza Hut. I
yeah,
have to shout out to Pizza Hut because I remember I had my first birthday party there.
you are right.
Um, but like just when you know because that was the central store or retail establishment for East Side that you know whenever we did Christmas shopping, whenever it's birthdays or for church or whatnot, we'll always go to Roses and my mom she you know she liked to go shopping for clothes so you know I still remember the aisles. Still remember like you had to get to the toy section you had to go in and take a left and go all the way to the back.
Right,
So
right.
you know, just
Roses.
roses.
Roses, yeah, Roses, the original Kroger before it turned into the larger Kroger that it is now.
Yeah,
Uh, Guthrie's, I miss Guthrie's. There's just you know this whole other life, and so the East Side has gone through cycles. You're
yeah.
now part of that process. Um, uh, Great question here. So you know, Patrick, in your opinion, you know, it sounds like you're spending time on the phone, you're making the calls, you're trying to attract business. But you know, what can we do to attract the business back to the East Side?
So we're working on the commission. We're working on a TAD, which is a tax allocation district, which essentially is like a tax freeze, but and any tax increases that occur goes into infrastructure. And what that does is, you know, sometimes when a business comes, they look for that infrastructure, and we with a tag can help provide those services. Um, but literally, you know, I listen to constituents.
Right,
I'm working on right now, but due to COVID, everything has been halted. I'm working on um, bringing IHOP to the east side.
wow,
And there's a couple of fish places that I talked to that are in commerce that are interested in moving to the east side of Athens. But more so, you know, I'm trying to work with our economic development office to rethink how we view East Side and the Gang School Road area and the Barnett Shoals Road area, the Lexington Highway area, and just to make that a regional hub. So the Lexington Road Corridor Study and the Commissioner's Revitalization Study committee, we're combining those together to help entice and enhance the aesthetics and the viability of the east side. So there's some good things that are happening.
great,
Um, just due to COVID, things are kind of put on pause right now.
absolutely. I had to flash while you were talking. The Kmart, of course, we'd be remiss. We had a comment here about Kmart. Got to shout out Kmart. But no, it's good to know that through a process of studies, through the that you guys are taking a strategic approach to try to get this done. So, you know, Patrick, we've talked some about who you are, where you grew up. We've talked about your work. We've talked about what you're passionate about and the campaigns that you've worked on. I think it's you know an appropriate time to turn to the time that we're in. So, uh, how you know, let's just ask the big question: how has COVID-19 changed the way that you do things?
So um, video chat is very popular right now,
Yeah,
but you know, it has changed dramatically, and it you know when this all started. Um, I remember being in New York for a conference with Blaine Williams and the county managers and some city leaders, and um, right in middle Manhattan, a news flash came out that was talking about COVID. You know, something bad is happening in China, um, but this was January, but you know, being an American, I guess we feel resilient. We feel, unstoppable. I don't arrogant, I guess.
Mm.
But the alarm bells were sounding internationally, but we were pretty much, had our head in the sand. And then late February, things started getting worse and worse, and more news stories started coming out. And then potentially, people getting infected in United States. And I would never forget the weekend of St. Patrick's Day. Athens Park County was about to have the downtown St. Patrick's Day festival, and St. Patrick's Day was on a Tuesday. We had a work session that was scheduled, and everything halted because the weekend prior, WHO declared COVID-19 a pandemic, and a lot of people just didn't understand it. A lot of people, even I at the time, I was just like, just a flu. We'll be all right. But as doctors started talking, as as politicians and the news anchors became silent, and the doctors started talking, then the reality set in that this is our new 9/11. This is our D-Day. This is our World War II. And considering the fact we just came out from an economic boom, people are shopping, vacationing, going out. We were used to that, and in a matter of a day, we all had to stop and say, okay, what we did yesterday, we can't do anymore. And that has been a struggle for many people. And I truly feel it's been a struggle for African Americans because, naturally we are just sociable people. And I know I have a lot of family members who I fight all the time and say, right now is not a good time to be social, but it's been a game changer. And I just pray that we're able to overcome this and adjust to our new lifestyle.
So Deborah Gonzalez just chimed in to say, she remembers that meeting regarding the first shelter in place was a little contentious. So when you and the members of the commission were first starting to get this together and have these discussions, as you all, as human beings, were trying to figure it out, there was some push and pull. Can you talk about those early days in the commission, what it was like to try to have to figure this out for the public?
So we have business leaders who also have a voice, and we have people who are not paying attention who also had a voice, and they were speaking at the same time. Because when you think about a complete shutdown, and people are like, hey, I'm making all this money, I'm going on vacation, just like I was saying, I'm hanging out with my friends, everything is going good. I like going to the bars and to the clubs. You have that livelihood set in your mind, and you're planning to take that vacation. It's spring break, spring break time. People were planning on, hey, I'm going to whatever, Joppa Island or Panama City Beach.
Right.
So we had all those voices like, well, we're Americans. It's just a flu. We don't know much about this. We shouldn't be doing this. Think about my kids, think about the economy, think about my business, what it's going to look like, because there was tons of uncertainty and a lot of unknowns that we felt that like we could do a voluntary shutdown. Like just allow residents to practice their own social distancing and to do their own thing, but just be conscious of the fact that something deadly is around. Um, but when we started speaking with the doctors in emergency rooms and started looking at cases in Italy, started looking at cases in around the world, all of that changed, and then the reality hit that this is serious. This is here. This is real. This is not the flu. This is something that's unknown. There's no vaccine. There's no treatments. Um, and we had to make that hard decision to say, you know, and I'm gonna be blunt about this. You can't run a business if you're dead.
Right.
So we didn't want anyone to die from this thing. We didn't want anybody to be hospitalized for this thing, considering the fact, the crisis of healthcare we have in the state of Georgia as well as in America. And then when you started realizing how serious this thing was, we came back again. Thanks to Russell, Commissioner Edwards, who was, being the drum, and just letting us know that this is serious and this is real, and you know, um, and that's why we came up with the second shelter in place, the second emergency declaration.
Patrick, you mentioned that some of the skepticism and the way that you felt it was impacting the African American community. I know that at one point you made an effort as a community leader to try to increase awareness of mask adherence, social distancing. You tried to put out all call. If I'm remembering correctly, I think you might have written an editorial, or there was a piece you wrote,
Hmm.
and there was some mixed reception on it, but it happened while you were trying to help shape that dialogue, which is
Yeah,
no easy thing to do. Can you talk a little bit about your feelings that led up to that effort,
yeah.
and how that effort helped influence the community?
So, like months ago, maybe a month ago, I swear to you, it feel like 2019. But
All meaning, yeah,
it's like what time is it? What day is it?
right,
But
right.
so you know, jokingly, me and other commissioners and friends are like, this is not going to affect the black people. This is, yeah, we're going to be fine. And then, and and I and others we kept making a joke. And then one day, one of the commissioners was like, "Oh no, Patrick, you need to read this article." And Commissioner Parker was sending me articles about cases in Michigan, Louisiana, and so I was like, okay, this is come serious. So I took, being me, I took a racial tone to it, and I said, I'm just, I want to focus on like what's happening in the African American community. There were some things that went on in Essex Clark County where people were posting videos of some stupid activities. Um, I had family members telling me of what was taking place in grocery stores and people having barbecues, and just listen to other, civic leaders in the community saying that something needs to be done. So data came out that was showing that 38% of the people who are in the state of Georgia have COVID, and majority of the folks who are dying of COVID are African American.
Hmm.
And I was upset. I'm like, I'm tired of black people, like literally, however you feel, I'm tired of us being a statistic. So,
Yeah.
I wrote a Facebook post. Um, for the most part, most of the African Americans in my group and some of the civic leaders in Essex Clark County, they understood where I came from. I did use some harsh tones, but I was serious about just having us to wake up to realize that COVID-19 is serious. And then there were some who didn't like the tone, who didn't understand who I was as an individual, who took it to a whole different level than what I was trying to intend it to go to. And my point is that you know, you know, we have to do our part to save our lives,
Hmm.
and we have to, take this thing seriously, just like everybody else does. So,
So thanks for going into that. I mean, my point, I hope that's clear. My point in bringing it up was that, community leaders messaging is difficult for community leaders. And especially, it'd be one thing if all of you were handed a playbook and you understood this entirely, but I imagine you've been working to understand COVID in real time along with the rest of us. So what is that responsibility like to just you're a person and you've just got to figure out what's going on so you can live your life, but then you
mm.
have this added responsibility of serving as an elected official, and you have this platform to share that information with everyone else. What does that feel like? How do you juggle that tension? What is that like, having to do both?
So one of the things that I ran on, it was the fact that like I don't want to be a politician. I just want to be, just a regular everyday man.
Mhm.
And I want people to talk to me like a regular everyday man. And I want to engage people like I'm a regular everyday man because sometimes when people get to the politician stage or to that leader stage, but you do
Mhm.
need to be professional. You need to tone it back and dial it back because people do look for you for leadership and guidance. But at the same time, people put you on a pedestal as where you are untouchable, and
Mhm.
where you can't, I don't want to say push buttons, but you want to be honest with the public, and you want to be You want to be honest with the public, but you also want to engage the public in a way where you can create a dialogue and where people are openly and freely, exchanging those communications with you as well. And um, but I do understand that when you become a civic leader, that you do need to be professional and you need to be, um, you need to be cognitive of, some of the things you say and how you lead.
Yeah. Deborah Gonzalez here shared that Patrick did a great job at town hall listening to some pushback and responding as to why and lessons learned. Uh, Patrick, one of the themes that's popped up over the last 15 minutes or so is the role that the public plays in your service, public scrutiny, public feedback, pushback. Can you talk a little bit about that part of the job, about interacting with the public and hearing what they have to say?
See, so we have, you know, I'm trying to figure out the best way to say that, uh, to respond. You're always going to get pushback, regardless if you're a politician or not. So there are going to be, you're going to have friends who are going to push back. You're going to have loved ones who are going to push back. Um, it's just it's unfortunate. It's just the normal way of life. It just, how you handle it makes the difference. So.
Mhm. Good, thanks. Um, so, Patrick, I'm going to take about 60 seconds here and just thank our annual sponsors. When we come back in those 60 seconds, for those of you that are tuned in, don't tune away. I know that there's a number of other issues beyond COVID that are happening right now. We're going to give Patrick space to talk about anything else he wants to share. We also are just going to take a moment to remember um, recently departed Commissioner Jerry Neesmith, and then talk about a few last COVID-related things in the 15 minutes we have left. So please don't go anywhere. We are just going to go through this very quickly. We want to thank everyone you see on screen, all the names and logos that you see here. These are our annual sponsors that help support us year round. They help us continue our 52-year-old mission of celebrating and conserving community heritage in Athens. Some of that includes historic places, but it also includes recipes, stories, cultural landmarks, and celebrating community figures. It also includes oral traditions and histories like we have here today. We want to thank Peggy and Denny Gallus for this week. Each week of this program has been brought to you by a different sponsor. And so we appreciate the Gallus family. And then we do want to let you know that if you'd like to become a sponsor, or even if you just want to become a donor member, membership begins at only $5 a month, uh, especially at times like these. Every single penny counts. We will notice. You will be thanked. We do appreciate it. Please consider joining at historicathens.com. You mentioned that this episode is episode 1 of 55. Um, Here are the other names that you're going to see. We mentioned that tomorrow we're talking to Commissioner Revita Thornton of District 9, Mayor Kelly Gertz on Friday, and a number of other nonprofit and local leaders as we round out this program through June 26th. After this episode is over, you can head over to the Facebook page for the Athens Welcome Center, which we also operate. They're doing daily live casts at 2 from different historic sites and from the Athens Welcome Center itself. And then one last note, if you're looking for a quick and easy way to show your support for Historic Athens, we've partnered with local business Satisfactory Printing and some local artists to present these Athens history featured shirts. So these are Historic Athens shirts that are available at historicathens.com. Support a local business and support a local nonprofit at the same time by visiting historicathens.com. And so we would really appreciate that support. So, Patrick, thanks for letting us thank our people. I I know you know what that's like. Obviously, you've run a campaign. You have to thank your people. So, Patrick, what I'd like to just do briefly now that we're back is to just say a few words about Jerry Neesmith. Jerry Neesmith was a friend. He was a community figure. He meant a lot to a lot of us and unfortunately passed away over the weekend, not due to COVID, but just due to, unfortunately, a random tragedy. But, he was part of your commission family, which I'm sure means you didn't always agree, but you probably saw him more than most of your real family. Can you talk at all about Jerry Neesmith?
Yeah, so it's been a rough week. I know I would love to finally get some sleep, but just considering the fact that like a Sunday ago we had an unfortunate event happen with tear gas.
Right.
Then the fallout out of that, and then all these budget talks and budget meetings. So it was a stressful week as it is. And we had another event happening Saturday where protesters were gearing up for. So there's a lot of tension and stress with that, and like, oh, are we gonna do well? And then to wake up Sunday,
Right.
it was just like, I got the text message, and county manager Blaine called, and he was like, "I got some bad news," and I was like, "I don't want to talk to you."
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
was like, "I know what you're gonna say. Just leave me alone. I'm gonna go back to bed and maybe wake up and you're and then a different reality." But like, I remember like when I first came on, like I've always known Jerry. I talked to him before, and I knew of him, and I remember like it was after a meeting when I first got on as commissioner, and we were walking to a bar, and he patted me on the back, and like I was intimidated by Jerry because and I still am. You know, he's a this he has a wealth of knowledge,
Right.
expertise that's unrivaled. I mean, he is like a literally a walking dictionary, a walking computer. He's phenomenal. Um, and I was intimidated by that. And I remember he patted me on the back and said, "Patrick," and he was blunt. He said, "Patrick, at first I didn't like you, and I had my concerns. Um, but after seeing you tonight, he said, I think you're going to be okay." And and after that moment, I felt, I was in a room full of giants. But after he said that, he made me feel of equal size. And
Mhm.
after that, we started working together. He helped me with some constituents in that East Athens. We started collaborating. Um, we may not have always agreed, but that man truly loved Athens, and you cannot deny that. And I've done all my crying. I'm sorry, like I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
But
No. Well.
you know,
Well. Thank you for sharing that tribute. I appreciate that. He'll definitely be missed, and it is such a close unit. We've had the chance to already talk to, and by the end of this, we will talk to almost all of your colleagues on the commission,
mhm.
including, as we said, Commissioner Ovita Thornton tomorrow. But I know that like any good family, you might argue at the dinner table, but it's
Yeah.
I know it's a close knit group. So I'm sorry for your loss. So, Patrick, turning to other issues, I want to quickly flash up this comment. So, Suki Jansen, we love Suki, said, love Patrick's support for ACC Solid Waste Department. Thank you, Suki. We enjoyed having Suki on the program. Patrick, if I'm going to ask you a pretty open ended question. If you want to talk about solid waste, you can. But um, part of the complicated part about COVID is it doesn't happen in a vacuum. As you mentioned, as a commissioner, you're having to make 100 different decisions. The budget, you're trying to decide what's going on with, as you said, the aftermath of the protest and the incident where tear gas was used. There's just so many things flying at you at once. Um, what has that been like trying to juggle that much while you're also trying to juggle life within the coronavirus?
Um, it's been stressful. As you can see, I wish I can get a haircut. But like, it's been stressful. But it's part of the challenge has been an elected official, and especially with COVID because we we didn't expect it, so there's a lot of unknowns, and we take it day by day. But um, it's something new, and then every day is just a new experience that we just try to overcome. Today's obstacles.
It's great. Thank you. Is there anything else going on these days that you want to talk about before we get into our last few questions?
Yeah, I would love for Athenians to care more about trees. I know
Mm,
and I do love ACC solid waste.
mm.
Um, but like just we're seeing all these development taking place, and we're clear cutting all these trees. And I'm a tree lover, for the swings, for climbing, for playing, for tree houses. that for us is to really start thinking about how we approach development here in Athens, especially when it comes to apartments. That we're tearing down a forest,
Hmm.
and then just plant some crepe myrtles or some bushes, but we don't we're losing the tree canopy that we once had, and I would like for to at least maintain Tree City USA.
Tree City, USA. Yes, sir. All right. So the three questions we ask each of our guests, we're going to get into those right now. So the first one's a little bit lighter, but Patrick, if somehow you woke up tomorrow, first of all, you're going to have to get some sleep for you to wake up, Patrick. So you got
Yeah.
to rest tonight. But let's say you woke up tomorrow somehow, and this was all over every Athens business. It wasn't just curbside; they were open for business. It was safe to go anywhere. Where would you go? What are the places you miss most right now?
The barber shop and normal bar.
Barbershop and then normal bar. I love it.
Yeah.
There just needs to be a place called the normal barber shop where they serve you drinks and cut your hair, and then you'd be set. Um,
Yeah.
uh, all
Well,
right.
and I
Uh,
do miss church as well, but we've been doing that webcast, so that's
yeah, that's interesting. So you go to Billups, right? Billups
Billis
Drive.
Grove.
Yeah, and how is this working? Because I just have to ask because it's related to COVID. You just installed a new pastor out there, right? And
Yeah,
all and they just settled into this job, and then this happened. So
this happened.
how has that worked?
So like Pastor Finch, Robert Finch, he was very intuitive to quickly switch to online and teach, teach people how to do online service. So the transition was smooth, and we still donate and donate to our tithes, but it was pretty. He's been a pretty awesome pastor so far.
That's great. All right, and Jeremy agreed with your tree point. Jeremy shared, I'm a tree hugger too. Implement tree surveys and tree save plans in ACC. So, Jeremy, thanks for backing Commissioner Patrick's uh, tree hugging nature, and we appreciate that. Yeah, I mean the trees and the tree canopy is certainly part of the look of our classic city, and we want to keep that. So, Patrick, second to last question here, kind of on these same lines. Part of what Historic Athens does is historic preservation. And uh, while we love development and building, because all the buildings we're trying to save, someone had to build at some point, there's some concern in the historic preservation community that when we come out of COVID and we come out of this recession, there's going to be a lot of pent up development pressure. And that can sometimes spill over into accidentally destroying historic places. And so, Patrick, if somebody's at the UGA library watching this interview 50 years from now and they leave, what are some of the historic places, districts, buildings, around Athens that you hope that they can still visit? What are some places you hope we save?
So like the Murmur Trestle, to me, I just think the Willowwood Shopping Center is a historic treasure.
Yeah,
Gangster Road, Lexington.
yeah.
Um, um, you know, I see like even neighborhoods as being historic. Pitter Road, Dunlap Road. Even though the houses may change, but the family and the culture pretty much stays the same. I hope I can actually see 50 years from now that those neighborhoods will remain the same.
Hmm. Well, that's great. Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing up a few places. That's one of the exciting parts about asking that question is every guest answers it a little differently. So thank you for bringing those up. And we enjoy working with you on historic projects. I know there's a few that we've got cooking that I look
Hmm.
forward to talking to you about soon. Um, the last question I have for you is completely open ended. If somebody is watching this, let's say 100 years from now, they're going back and looking at this interview, what would you want that person to know about Athens, Georgia at this moment?
Um, that we are a very loving community. We're a very wonderful community, and that our deals may be different, but we communicate as neighbors, and that it's a great town to live in, a great town to raise your kid, and we have some Flagstaff. We have a Flagstaff institution here, as well as other great higher education institution. Excuse me. So great place to raise your family, and I guarantee you, 100 years from now, it will be still a great place to raise your family.
and we share that confidence.
And don't and keep my trees, please.
Keep the
100 years
trees.
from now, keep the trees.
Patrick's going to stick around and check. He's going to make sure. So,
Yeah.
well, Patrick, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. To everyone watching, we'll be back with Commissioner Ovita Thornton at 1 o'clock tomorrow. Mayor Kelly Gertz on Friday. We hope that you continue to tune in. Also, as soon as this is over, if you head over to the Facebook page for the Athens Welcome Center, they're doing a great live cast historic event there too. You're going to want to check that out. So, Patrick, stick with us. You and I are going to go offline here. But to everyone else, thank you. Be safe, be healthy. Listen to what Patrick's having to say about. I mean, look, if Patrick is sacrificing his haircut, he's doing it for you.
I'm not Mariah, okay? I'm not Mariah.
We give you a little bit of time, maybe so. I don't have a hope. I don't have a hope. That's all I got. So, thank you to everyone for being out there. Thank you for Patrick. It's always good to talk to you. And please take care, everyone. Be safe. We'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock.